8 answers for 8 common watering questions for your garden right now on Drink, Smoke, Build. Welcome back to the channel, you guys. I'm Billy D. This is Drink, Smoke, Build. Go ahead and mashy on that like button if you like the content that you're seeing today. And of course, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you are notified every time one of our videos comes out. So today, guys, you've seen the title. It is that time of year, hot, it's summer. A lot of people, they forget to water or they overwater, and there are so many different questions about quality of water and should I treat it, should I test it, when should I water, so many different questions. Of all of those questions, I put together a list of 8 questions, and I'm going to answer those for you here tonight. Want to make sure that you guys know this disclaimer, that this is what works for me. This is my advice on what has worked for me. You need to figure out what works for you and for your area. One of the biggest factors in watering is where you're located and what your growing zone is like. So make sure you take that into account when you are deciding how it is you're going to water your vegetable and herb gardens. All right, so guys, without further ado, let's get into those 8 questions and get those answered. Instead of me answering all these questions and you just watching me wave my hands around instead of actually do anything, I figure I'll give you guys a little bit to look at while we answer these questions. So I'm going to water the garden while I go through and answer the 8 common watering questions for you right now here on Drink, Smoke, Build. Question number 1, should I manually water or install an automatic timed irrigation system? Well, the answer to this is actually both. Watering by auto-timed irrigation keeps you from forgetting to water, while manually watering actually allows you to continue to daily monitor your garden for any sort of changes. These changes could be a new pest, it could be if you aren't looking to produce male plants, you've got male plants that you need to take down, or you need to do some pruning, or maybe you need to do some weeding, or maybe your plants look like they're a little nutrient deficient. Whatever the case is, if you manually water most of the time, that means you're going to be in your garden almost every day, and you can monitor the changes in your garden and attack it quickly instead of waiting for it to become a real problem. Question number 2, should I water at night or in the morning? Now, the answer to this question isn't quite that simple. It depends very heavily on what region you live in, what your climate is like, what stage of growth your plants are in, and what the current weather is like. Now, if it has rained 5 inches over the last 3 days, then you probably don't need to be watering at all for a day or 2. Now, when you do resume your watering, of course, you can choose, depending on your climate and your growing region, if it should be at night or in the morning. I recommend in most circumstances that evening watering is better. Unless you live in a very high humid area with a moderate temperature of 70 to 80 year-round, you are probably going to water at night, because the higher temperatures in the summer, in the 90s and the 100s, if you water early in the morning, you can still have water on the leaves of your plants, even if you didn't intend to get it on the foliage of your plants. You can have it on that, and the sun comes up really hot, and the first couple of hours actually burns through the foliage on your plants. I've seen this many times, and I highly recommend you water at night to avoid this. Now, if you have a high humidity area that you live in, watering at night can actually promote mold or powder mildew. So you might actually want to water in the morning, but you probably don't have the extreme heat to worry about. So again, this is dependent on where you live and what your constant climate or temperature is like. Question number 3. how often should you water your garden? That answer really depends on your watering style. I actually recommend that you water every single day, if possible, or at least every other day. And the reason that I recommend this is if you get into a rhythm of watering every single night or every single morning and get that rhythm down and into your schedule, you probably will be least likely to forget to water and end up damaging your plants. So I recommend, if you can, try to put into your schedule to water every single day, and water a moderate amount. Don't just completely drench your entire beds or garden or plants. I recommend that you do a light 10-minute watering or so of your garden every single day to keep you on track. Question number 4. Should you just water the ground and the roots of your plants, or should you also water the foliage as well? My answer to this question is yes, you should be watering both, but not every time. I would recommend that once a week or once every couple of weeks if you've had some rainstorms, to make sure that you're at least dusting the foliage of your plants to help keep them clean and keep them more efficient in photosynthesis and their ability to make energy and produce fruit. So yes, most definitely make sure that at least once in a while you are spraying the foliage of your plants as well. And then of course, if you ever apply any sort of organic insecticide, highly recommend applying that to both the tops and undersides of the foliage of your plants as well. Question number 5. Do you need to test the pH and chlorine of your water before you water your garden? Absolutely. At least once a week, I highly recommend that you are doing a test of your chlorine levels and your pH, especially if you're watering from the tap of your municipal water system. The vast majority of the time, they over-chlorinate the water because chlorinate dissipates so quickly. They over-chlorinate it, and once it comes to your tap, it's usually pretty high. The number one solution to this without having to filter is let it sit in your watering container for 48 hours to let the chlorine dissipate. If you have a pool, you know that if you let the pool sit for too long without chlorine, it ends up completely dissipating in the water. So you want to let the water sit, or you can filter it in through a chlorine filter, which is what I do, and it brings my chlorine levels down to below 0.002, which is the highest level that I want to see in my garden. So make sure that you let it sit or put it through a chlorine filter if your chlorine levels are basically showing at all. Now, if the pH is out of whack, this can also be from too much chlorine, or it could just be that the water has too low or too high of a pH, and you can adjust this by using pH up or pH down, or even some homemade remedies like lemon juice and whatnot. Now you have to be careful with that because that is an acid. But basically, yes, I recommend that you test at least once a week the water that's going into your plants, because if your pH is out of balance, it can end up causing a newt lockout and end up causing major problems for your plants and for their yield come harvest time. All right, question number 6. Do I need to treat my water or filter it before watering my veggies and herbs? If your pH levels are out of balance, like we talked about in the last question, or your chlorine levels are high, you can buy a chlorine filter, or you can let your water sit for 48 hours before watering. So I wouldn't recommend that you add any sort of treatment to your water unless you are specifically trying to deal with a pH or chlorine balance problem. Question number 7. Can I make up watering if I forgot or couldn't water for a few days? No, absolutely never try to make up watering by over watering your garden. This is one of the biggest mistakes made by so many new gardeners. If you have forgotten to water, or you go out of town and you don't water for 3 or 4 days, my suggestion is that you just water like normal whenever you remember. Water at your normal time, and do not overwater. Water the normal amount that you normally would and continue your schedule. You've already shocked your plants by putting them into a drought. You do not want to shock them twice by overwatering them. You could definitely put them into a second shock, and that could end up killing or severely stunting your harvest. Question number 8. Should you add nutrients to your watering schedule? Now, this depends highly on how you feed your plants. I do a direct compost or live soil hugelkultur, new word I just learned the other day, type setup in my garden beds, meaning that I don't need to add any additional nutrients. I just need to continue to add my direct compost. Now, if you're not directly composting, then I highly recommend that you do add nutrients to your watering schedule. One of my favorite products, which basically ends up using a aquaponics type setup, is called fish shit. And it is a fish excrement that is bottled. It's basically bottled pond water. And if you have a pond with fish in it, use that to water once or twice a week, and it will help with adding nutrients to your soil. All right, you guys, that's it. That's the 8 answers to the common gardening watering questions. I thank you guys for joining me tonight. Please, 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 if you got value out of this video, go ahead and mashy on that like button, mashy the subscription button if you haven't already, and of course, don't forget to mashy the notification bell so you get notified every time one of my videos hits the net. Love you guys. Billy D, drinking on out of here for Drink Smoke Build. We'll see you next time.